Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am Joshua Youngs. He is Tyler Tingu. We are the Medicare Machine Factory. Top 1% podcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are going to do our best. We're only going to have about a 30-minute session today, maybe a little bit less. We're going to talk about the art and science of productivity. How the heck are you today, Tyler?
I am doing fantabulous. It's been a fun week so far. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. It's snowing here in Colorado today, and we have the launch boot camp in the middle of that. So day 2 of that. So we'll see how the folks from Texas and whatnot handle the. It's literally like 40-degree wind chills. It's like 10 below zero wind chills, snowing all day. So we'll see how the Texans handle this.
Always a fun time.
Yeah. So yeah, productivity to me means a lot of things, really. And there's different types of productivity. Some people look at productivity as activity, which is different. Activity makes it look like you're doing something. Productivity means you're actually doing something productive, getting you closer to a goal, accomplishing something like that. So I'm curious to hear the things that you do to help yourself and or other agents be more productive in what they're doing.
Well, I think with productivity is actually, it's the act of producing, right? So, that's where you get to be a producer. Big difference, like you said, between being active and being productive. Getting out, generating activity. You've got to have the activity to start being productive for sure, but it's making sure, things we've talked about and you've encouraged me for years on is focusing on the money-making activities.
Let's go through those. What are the money-making activities?
Well, obviously, going to appointments.
Writing apps. Yeah, that's number one. Number one money-making activity is writing an app, I think, right? Number 2 productivity activity, making money.
Depending on the individual, where they're at, either nurturing or developing community relationships, community partners, things like that, working leads to get to those appointments, to be able to get in front of people, seminars, marketing, event type situations, because you got to get in front of people, right, to be able to go to the appointment, to write the apps.
Well, I think the key word you said was going to locations in the community, in essence, relationships. The relationships are key to everything, whether it's relationships with doctor offices, relationships with financial planners, relationships with,
clients.
The client relationship to me is the most important one you could have. Are you nurturing that relationship? Are you taking the time? And that is a money-making activity. Some people don't see it that way. They think of it, I've already gotten paid to write that application. That's the wrong mindset. The mindset you need to take is, how do I treat this person in a way that they never want to leave, that they send me all their family and friends? Because you have to understand that for someone to refer someone to you, it's a risk. Because if you screw things up, then what is the person going to do? They're not going to come to you. They're going to go back to the person that referred you and say, what the heck? So, I think the relationship part of it's cool. What do you think is, what is your best method of keeping the relationship fresh with your clients?
Number one, as dumb as it sounds, I think the responsiveness to being available and servicing them, providing that back end support, has always been the most important factor. I don't think it's the most productive factor necessarily, but I think it's the most important factor. Being able to help solve those problems, take care of the issues when they arise, and being there to, help. I don't know how else to say it. Whether it's, I need to get a new doctor, or I have an issue with my prescriptions, things like that. I found that being there to do those items cements the relationship the most.
But you know,
You get-
I agree. However, I would add to that, make sure you understand that your client, most of them aren't going to come to you when they need help, when they have questions. Inevitably, there's a lot of things that I'll do in my processes because I've learned over the years that clients don't want to bother you. Clients don't want to. They don't want to infringe on. They think you're too busy. Whatever. So you've got to. I believe you have to work harder at reaching them than they do reaching you. If you're just waiting around for them to call you with service stuff, usually if someone by the time someone calls you, it's a situation that's gotten out of hand that they couldn't fix. Because most people try to fix stuff on their own, versus if you're proactively reaching out to clients, especially in that first month or two of them being on a new policy, to me that separates an average agent with someone who's going to have a long-term, long going relationship, which the relationship part of it creates the referrals. But again, the referrals don't happen unless you take care of the first client correctly and create such an overwhelming experience that they want to tell people about it. Like if you think about the last restaurant someone told you about, more than likely it was less about the food and the service and the drinks and more about the ambiance and the experience. And you know, they came out and they made my dessert table side. You know, that's an experience that's unique to most other restaurants, right? Same thing with the hibachi grill. Why do people like hibachi grills? Because it's an experience. You have somebody who makes choo-choo sounds and makes volcanoes and flips eggs and all that kind of stuff, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I think you do a great job of maintaining relationships. Yours is different than mine. Yours, I believe you utilize your ability to connect and communicate with humans. And for me, I use my ability to um, use other systems and processes I have access to do the service work on some levels. And so we're in a little bit different spot because I'm using my staff for most of the service, and you're just now entering that phase of it by hiring your first assistant. So I'm curious to you to what you think the difference is made by you having the assistant finally, and how much difference that's made in your customer service.
it's been a huge help for time saving. So I mean, going back to the whole productivity thing, right? I mean, I can sit there and service the client, take care of that, you know, depending on certain things, which is definitely important to be able to solidify the relationship there. However, as much as that's a money making activity to be able to do that, if I'm responding to fires all the time, I can't go out and get new clients. I can't train agents. I'm spending all my time doing that rather than being on the productive side to be able to grow and produce more. So having her on board now has definitely been it's been a much smoother process for getting to that situation. There's been a lot of stuff that she's just been able to take care of and handle, you know, ordering a new card, verifying a doctor, you know, some of the simpler things being, you know, newer into the business and not being able to handle some of the back end support. Like, you know, I'll give a huge shout out to Diana on that. I mean, she's a rock star when it comes to that stuff. And hopefully she'll get to that point here. You know, just take a little while to do it, because I'm sure Diana wasn't as dialed in as she is now, you know, a year or two ago. So it's been really helpful to do that. But it's also been one of the things where kicking myself for not doing it earlier.
That was my next question.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I should have done it earlier for multiple reasons. The biggest thing is that I would have been able to be more productive further along than where I'm at right now to be able
Well, for me, the biggest time consumption you have is during AEP, because up until even this year, you've been doing all that yourself, doing all the evaluations, doing all the stuff, doing all the phone calls, doing all the things. And as your book of business grows over 1,000 clients, that becomes a task. Let me just take the numbers on it. Let's say you have 1,000 clients and there's 54 days of AEP, like you have to talk to 20 clients a day. 20 clients a day. And that's assuming that they all answer the phone, assuming that they all set up appointments. Then you got to chase down the stragglers and get the herd back in place. So the bigger your book of business gets, the harder it is to manage and control. Think of it like a flock of sheep. People with a huge flock of sheep don't have one herd dog. A lot of times we'll have 2 or 3 herd dogs, the bigger the flock gets. And so I think that's you're looking at it right. And I also regret not doing it earlier as well. Like for me, I would say right around 300 clients is when you should hire your first either virtual or personal assistant, in-person assistant. But what's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Somewhere right around 300 is probably a good number to where you can, at a very minimum, bring on a virtual assistant that can help with at least scheduling, back end outreach, things like that. The other piece is introducing it early on. That I think is one of the biggest banes for me right now with the transition has been more that my clients have been so used to me working with them over the last 10 years or better for some of them, where it's just been Tyler, call Tyler, call Tyler. And then they get my voicemail and says, please, you leave me a message, or for faster responses, you can get a hold of Georgia to get on my schedule. And so some of them have been, oh, that's great, you got an assistant, that's awesome. But some of them are like, I just want to talk to you. I don't want to go to the assistant. Like I want you. And it's like, okay, well, that's fine. But now I called you back. I had appointments all day and my first availability was 7 at night. So now I'm calling you at 7, it's dinner time and you don't want to talk to me, or you're going to bed or watching your show. And we're playing phone tag, where if you just call her and get on the schedule, that's wasted time.
Did you send out a notice to your clients that you brought her on?
I did. Yep. Okay. So I sent out, I sent out a blast when I brought her on, and then also when I did my AEP reminder drops, both with the physical and email reminders on there. I put all that in there for that mention.
Yep. And in retrospect, I would also recommend taking the time, if you're the one adding an assistant to your repertoire, taking the time to call every client and explain what's going on and really build up the assistant. Because all of my clients were also resistant in the beginning. But what you also run the risk of, and you got to keep control of it, you run the risk of them getting too comfortable dealing with your staff only. And if that happens, then you lose that relationship part of it and you get farther and farther away from your client. That's the stage that I started to fall into. And now I'm circling back around to re-engage and develop those relationships again before they fall off, right? So I would definitely recommend hiring an assistant way before you think you should. I would recommend reaching out to all your clients when you do that and explain why and what you're doing and how it's going to make things better. It's not that you're like passing them off to somebody. You're just passing off the tasks that take away your time from helping people to somebody that's really going to specialize in that. And I think if you put the right curtain stage in front of it and you present it the correct way, then your clients will be receptive to it. But if you just all of a sudden now they're receiving phone calls from someone random, which is what I did. I didn't tell anybody anything. I just all of a sudden just somebody started calling. And so in the beginning, what was happening is my assistant would call and say, hey, this is Diana, or hey, this is Jackie with Medicare Peace of Mind. And then boom, they get hung up on, because I had trained my clients to hang up on anybody that's not me. Right. And so then it took a while for us to figure out, well, okay, we had to say, hey, wait, I work with Joshua, and then throw in Medicare Peace of Mind. So I did a really good job of branding myself, even though I had the agency brand. And so for the first couple of years, more so, the agent community knew more about my brand than my clients did. My clients knew me as Joshua. They knew me as the Medicare guy. That's the keywords they say. We work with Joshua and or your Medicare guy. And then they go, oh, and then it's like the Wizard of Oz, like, oh, that's a horse of a different color. Why don't you say so? And they open the gate and they let them on in, right? So those are the tips that I would give. Hire an assistant way before you think you need one. It'll double your productivity instantly as long as you train them correctly. Make sure you notify your clients when you're doing changes like that, both with a letter, email, and you want to do a couple of notices because people will miss the first one, whether they didn't open the envelope or they didn't open the email or whatever it is. And just remember, it's your responsibility to make sure that your client knows about what's going on.
The other thing that we're doing now, obviously, going into the first quarter, OEP, all that stuff, doing client outreach calls, call them client love calls. And, my assistant's reaching out to everyone directly and just following up, whether they made a change during AEP or not, anything like that. And she's doing that customer service touch point, just, hey, wanted to check in, make sure everything with the new plan's still good, or make sure nothing's changed since we did your review in the annual period. And it's giving her an opportunity to make sure that she's getting in contact with just about every one of the clients in some form or another, whether it's a voicemail or anything else. You know, and it's kind of funny, you know, I mean, being in the business long enough, 11, 12 years ago, I'd call people up in Wyoming on a ranch and, you know, it's like, what the hell is a computer? What do you mean? What is a text message? And looking at clients that I've been bringing on the last year or two, they're like, can you just email me? Can you just text me? And they want that digital communication. So, you know, it's doing some of those different outreach touch points and sending those texts, things like that, to make sure that you're hitting them on all fronts, because a lot of people, depending on their situation, age, you know, geographic location plays into it a lot. The more rural you are, the less technology seems to be prevalent in some of the more rural areas. And they do prefer that handwritten note over a text message at 85 years old, because they grew up on a ranch in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, versus someone who grew up in the city and just turned 65. They're more used to that technology, especially coming out of the workforce or still being in it and having to utilize it.
Yeah. We have a question on Facebook. It says, I'm trying to hire a part-time assistant now. I'm having a hard time finding one who wants to work on the phone or sales. Also, I'm trying to figure out how to do a W-2. Is that something I have to get a payroll company for? Also, what do you guys have the assistants do? Well, yeah. Number one, you definitely want to get a tax EIN number before you start hiring employees. That way you have an official tax number and it's not just tied to your personal social. So I would definitely, if you're at the point where you need to hire an agent or an assistant, then you're definitely at the point where you need to create an agency. I don't give tax advice or any of that kind of crap. What I can tell you is how I set mine up. And so however you set yours up is up to you, but I'm not giving advice right now. Go ahead.
I was just say, if someone's at the point where they're just starting to bring on their first assistant and they're going to do like a virtual assistant or something, using a service for that, where they're paying that service as a 1099 service fee, and it's, or as it'd be like an expense, like doing a mail drop or something like that. Now you're paying a service fee to them and they're doing the employment of these people, and you're paying a company a service fee. Going that way, if you're not ready to get an EIN and do that and grow too far, if they're doing some of the basic back end stuff, not necessarily a whole ton of engagement, that's the better way to go, I think, at first. I mean, you know, looking
you gotta have a brick and mortar too. So if you don't have a brick and mortar and you don't have an agency, then you should hire a virtual assistant first. But yeah, I would definitely get a payroll company rather than do it yourself. I did that from the very beginning, and it's been wonderful because I don't have. There's a lot more moving parts to it than you think. You got to, depending on how much income and revenue you have to send in taxes either quarterly or monthly, or there's different things. And so, as I've gone through things, the IRS has changed how often I have to send in taxes. So the more money you're paying out in payroll, the more frequently you have to send the money out, because the IRS doesn't want you sitting on all those taxes and accidentally spend them. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, you definitely want to get a payroll company. As far as the things we have our assistants do, it's everything that takes productivity off of my plate. So I have them doing reminder phone calls. I have them doing service work. I have them doing customer service answers. I have them they were handling my schedule. I can tell you for a fact that if it stinks for a while because you feel like you don't control your own schedule anymore. However, if you have good assistants that their job is to fill your calendar with days, like for the last year, literally every single day, I just wake up and I go, oh, I guess I have a full day of schedule again, and I run the whole schedule each day, right? But yeah, what things would you add or subtract to that as far as what you're having yours do?
The back end clerical for me is a big item on there. I mean, and that's what I was saying, like, you know, this is just an example of like what I was doing is the thank you card for someone I worked with yesterday, sending out that thank you card and stuff, helping with organizing that and getting that stuff taken care of. I always take the time to write that handwritten note for a new client in there for those. But filling out folder work, clerical paper, any of that stuff where I'm literally just sitting here. I mean, it needs to be done. It's got to be taken care of. For me, my OCD doesn't let me not have it taken care of. So, you know, having those things taken care of is, for me, the least productive thing I could be doing. It's an active thing. It needs to be done, but it's the least productive thing I can be doing is messing with the paperwork and the back end for filing and that stuff. That is the least productive thing I can do. That's the number one thing I have them working on. Updating CRM, attaching files, notes, those kinds of things. Like it needs to be done. I want the information in there and I need it in there. You know, someone calls in, or if I'm doing a dialer program, sending out a blast email, whatever it is, I need to have that accessible and available. So, but it is literally the least productive thing I could be doing with my people.
And each person needs to decide for them what you enjoy doing, because you should offload anything you don't enjoy doing, anything that takes up time but doesn't get you closer to making money, anything that can be handed off. Basically, you want to go through everything that you're doing and find all the things that can be delegated or automated, and you want to do all that. And then once you're done, what you'll end up with is now you're doing the stuff that you're best at, the stuff that you like the most. So when you're able to spend the whole, basically, if you're an athlete, it'd be like everybody, you just go around and there's a bunch of balls teed up ready for you to hit. Let's see, I have an EIN and the agency is licensed. I also have a brick and mortar. Yeah. The whole day is service. Once you get a certain point, like even my staff, they get overwhelmed with all the service calls sometimes. But what I can tell you too, something that most people don't think about, I have found out by accident, really, on some levels, that one of the most effective ways for me to train a new agent to get into the field and run when they hit the field is to hire them as an assistant for a year or two. When they get that ground, when they get that experience of how to service and all that, the confidence that comes in the back end from them hearing all the problems that could happen and how to fix those. That's my new favorite way. So if you're looking for a way to create and train a new agent, um, the using him as your assistant for a year model has proven to be very effective. But I've got about 3 minutes, Tyler, and I got to run. I've got to get to that launch. We're doing the rest of the launch boot camp. I got to get to the doctor too. I may or may not have strep, but just so y'all know, nothing stops the machine. Not even strep throat. I'm still going to run and grind. You can't stop me. So, what would you like to close with, Tyler? You're in New York, right? You're in New York, Western New York, middle of nowhere, near the reservation areas, right? But you are building a team on the East Coast, and what kind of agents are you looking for? New agents, obviously, right? But
Yep.
what ingredients do you wish they had if they had them?
Number one, just a willingness to learn. That's number one. They've got to be coachable, to where they're going to want to take that knowledge, and that goes along with being new. I found too many times trying to work with established agents who
Know it all.
out there, you can't break the bad habits, and even when you can break the bad habits, they end up falling back in there in some way, shape, or form. Drive and passion for what they're doing. If I'm going to be working with someone, I want them to have the same drive and passion to doing what they're going to do as what I have, not necessarily for where we're at. It's a different level when you get to that point, but I want them to have that same drive and passion that I'm going to put into them to do that, because I want it to be a relationship building up, mentor, not throw stuff against the wall and march.
Yeah, we're not a recruit 100 agents.
Human shield.
We really try to recruit one at a time, on purpose. I've told no to more people than I've told yes in the last 2 months. It's something that you got to keep control of, the culture of your team and all that. It's really important. Holden dropped in and said they need a high level of integrity and grind to join Team TNT, and that's true. We try to lead by example in the field at the top of the end of the food chain, if you will, and we're looking for people that are doing that. So whether you're ideally, we're looking for people that aren't already in insurance. I don't really have a lot of interest in taking people that are already in insurance and moving them to a new upline and doing all that kind of crap. I'm really interested in someone. I'm interested in the teacher, the coach, the pastor, the people of influence that are feeling overworked and underpaid and undervalued, and they want a chance to make a difference in this world on a day-to-day basis. That's what this business offers somebody, is an opportunity to change your life, change your family's trajectory as far as financially, but at the same time, the impact we have on a daily basis with each person that we sit with, last night after the boot camp. I went on 2 appointments, and the second one was more rewarding. It's this guy who's a few younger than me on Medicare, dealing with a lot of issues and stuff, has been misinformed a few times. To see him and his son, like in essence, high five me on the way out the door because they felt so good about what's going to happen for March 1st. That's the reason why we do this. And so, if you're out there and you feel stuck in what you're doing and all that, reach out to Tyler, especially if you're on the East Coast. We'd love to have a chat. We're not taking anybody and everybody. You'd have to pass the cut, so to speak. But yeah, join us next week. We have an exciting guest. Justin Brock's going to join us next week for the 7 a.m. start. 7 a.m. Mountain starts, 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern, for all those that don't like the math. But yeah, we're really excited. Thank you for joining. Sorry, we were a little bit short today. I wasn't sure if I was going to have to go get a doctor's appointment first thing or if but I have to wait till 2. But yeah, again, I am Joshua Youngs. This is Tyler Tingu. We are the Medicare Machine Factory. We are designed to help people enter and be in the top 1% of this industry. And so if you want to do that, keep tuning in, subscribe, like our channel, reach out to us. We love to help people. And either way, have yourself a fantastic, what people call hump day. I just call another day at this point.
Y'all make it great.